Welcome to the Better Things Ahead podcast, where we take time to look at life's little journeys. And one of the journeys that we have been looking at over the last several weeks is the journey of making school choice. How do we as parents, how do we as Christians, how do we make decisions about where our kids go to school? What type of schooling do they get? How are we involved in their educational choices? And today I have with me Steve and Anna Given. Steve and Anna have been members here at Ridgecrest for quite a while. How long have you been members here?
2000.
2000. So I was in college, and
thanks for that. I already had kids. I appreciate that.
Yep, you're welcome. So Steve, Anna, tell me a little bit about how y'all ended up at Ridgecrest, and then a little bit about just your family.
Okay, so we ended up here. Our parents were here. Well, my parents were here at the time, and so we came here. We had friends that were here, and we got plugged in. My brothers were here. And so we kind of got here and then just stayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we visited around a little bit and ended up finding a life group that we liked. And that's where we are. So I've been here ever since.
So you have 3 kids, 2 grandkids. Tell me a little bit about them.
Daughter's 30.
Okay.
Of course, she grew up at Ridgecrest, and then twin boys that are about to be 29.
Yeah.
And so they're our daughter's local, and then our twins both live in Nashville. And so they all grew up at Ridgecrest their entire, for the most part, since their very young years. And this is what they know kind of as their church home. And then, of course, the grandkids are here now with my daughter, so it's fun to watch them roam
and her husband,
as well.
Kyle.
And her husband, Kyle.
Yep.
So
Yeah. And you're in cybersecurity, and Anna, you're a public school teacher.
Yes.
So we wanted to have you guys on to talk a little bit about public school because that was the choice y'all made for your kids. And but first of all, did both of y'all grow up going to public school?
I went to a private school, Magnolia Academy, through the 7th grade. My mom taught there, and so that's just where we were. And then when she moved to teach in public schools, we moved to Clinton, and then she started teaching in Clinton public schools, and that's when my brother and I started going.
Okay. All right, Steve, you...
Clinton Public Schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, had a very undistinguished career, but I did graduate.
Well, and that's really all we have to get. You know, the diploma is what we really needed out of that, right? So, Anna, I'm curious, what was the transition like as you moved from 7th to 8th grade and out of private and into public school?
Which is a hard time for kids in middle school.
Yeah, middle school is tough to begin with.
Yeah, it is. I had some friends already there in Clinton, and I went to church with some that were there at the school. So it was I went from a very small school at Magnolia to Clinton Junior High, which was pretty large.
One of the biggest in the state.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because I had those friend groups, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
So
how small was Magnolia?
Not sure number-wise. I think there were like 2 classes per grade.
Yeah.
Like 2 first-grade classes, 2 second, so that was it.
Fewer than 100 in their graduating classes, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Especially by that time.
Yeah, because by the time I graduated from Clinton, we had 320 in our graduating class. So you're talking about 3 times as big as what you were, at least 3 times as big. So that's a pretty interesting, a difficult transition maybe sometimes in some ways. So I'm curious, how did kind of y'all's experience with public school as you grew up affect maybe the choices that you made with the kids and how y'all decided, I want my kids to go to public school? Was that ever really a conversation for you guys?
I don't think we ever considered anything but public unless you were having a real specific conversation.
I don't think so. Number one, we could not afford to do anything but public school.
Yeah, 3 kids within 19 months. So we were just holding on for dear life there for quite a while.
And then I was teaching in public schools. So of course, I stayed home when they were young, but I had taught already in a public school and then went back to teaching when Shelby was in 2nd grade and the boys were in kindergarten. I think I went back.
And I think in Clinton, for me, man, that was a great school district. So, I had nothing negative to say about it. We had a lot of really good teachers, and it was well thought of, and it was just good. It's kind of interesting. I had a conversation recently with fellow graduate who was 2 years ahead of me and much smarter, but his brother's incredibly successful. But we're talking about the people we knew from Clinton that were C-level execs now, different places, and have been very successful. And it's just an interesting conversation. But I think Clinton was a unique district in the time, and I think even in hindsight, now that I see, learned a lot more about how it was founded and some of the beliefs of the people who founded it and all that. So I feel like, man, it was pretty unique.
Yeah.
And I saw that even among other schools. When you get to college, you kind of begin to realize you may have a foundation that's stronger than maybe even others that are sitting around you. So.
Yeah. So y'all eventually made the move from Clinton to here, to Madison, where we are now. Do you see some of the same sorts of things that you saw in Clinton Public Schools and Madison Public Schools?
Yeah.
Madison County Schools?
Yeah.
I think so. I think Madison's a bit of a mirror. Madison, during the time frame we've lived here as adults, is a bit of a mirror as to what Clinton was growing up, and Clinton remains a good school district.
Yeah.
But a lot of people moving here, a lot of young families, and so it's interesting. But the school district's very strong.
Yeah. So Anna, you've kept teaching in the public schools. What has why have you enjoyed teaching so much in the school that you're in? And I'm curious to know why you've continued to teach. Is it something that, obviously you love it, but
Yeah,
I just would love to hear more about it.
I've taught 8th grade math for 23 years.
Yeah.
This is my 23rd year. I've taught in the same classroom for 23 years.
That's amazing.
But I just love what I do. I love the school that I'm in. I cannot say enough good about Madison Middle. I don't know any other schools to compare that to, but it is a great school. And we've been through a lot of different administrators, and it's not like it's been one administrator the whole time, but no matter what, all the changes, it's still been, to me, just one of the best places to teach. So in y'all's experience, I'm curious to know, with your kids going all the way through and experiencing public school the entire way through, I want to start with what were some of the drawbacks of that or the cons that you saw of their experience? And they may not be anything big. I'm just curious to know, did you guys notice anything that you were like, I really wish that wouldn't have been a part of their school experience? And I'm asking that as somebody who has had kids, all three of my kids go most of the way through schooling as public schools. I mean, really, all of them have to this point, and we intend that all three of them will graduate from their public school. We've had some interesting experiences, but nothing that I would look at as just a terrible experience. I don't know that we've had any terrible experiences. They all had good, strong friendships through their schools and overlapped into church friends and
great teachers.
Yeah.
I think probably in real time, at any point in time, if you'd asked me if I'd like something to be different, I'm sure there's something. But I don't recall anything that I ever, from a systemic perspective, I thought, man, that's horrible. They should really fix that. I just haven't seen that. But again, it's strong school, strong school board. It's overall it's been a net positive. I don't have any
and they did have great teachers.
They did
all the way through, I feel like. So
yeah, that's been a big part of our experience as well. And I think that's one of those things that makes it easier to make that choice where we live. I mean, the quality of education and teaching that they get is top notch. And so that really helps in a lot of ways. So from y'all's perspective then, and we said, maybe some of the challenges or difficulties, what were the positives to sending your kids to public school?
Man. Things they could get involved in, a lot of really strong extracurricular programs. Yeah, the academic programs are kind of incredible. Think about two of the three were national merit finalists. They all were in the 30s on their ACT. They got really, really good, and that wasn't genetic on my part for sure. So they had really good educational from that perspective. But they also had, you're thinking about it, we're sitting in a church, they had just a consistent outpouring of Christian educators who poured into them in the public school system. And so I think that's, think about things that you hear versus reality. I kind of choose to live my life based on my lived reality versus what people tell me, is really, you hear all these terrible things happening and how all this it may or may not be the case about how religion and school and this, that, and the other. But the reality is we have solid foundation of Christian educators for them throughout, and they knew pretty quickly that they were Christians, and they mentored them in that way, right? In a way that, perhaps if they were not Christians, perhaps they don't get that. Maybe the teacher's smart enough to say, I'm leaving that alone because I'm just not going to do it. But, I see that. So I will say, that's an interesting, I often see that a lot of times between Christian private education versus, public. We get a Christian education. Well, we're been a few thousand years. Christians are kind of everywhere now, it turns out. And anytime I hear about these horrible public school teachers that are trying to drive away from Christianity, I look across the room at Anna and think, my lived reality is not that at all. I'm watching her in her class and the influence she has, and it's just not, it's not that. So I think even from that perspective, it's been great. I think about Coach Steve Taylor, Germantown, poured into Brandon at a time where Brandon needed it. He was a junior and senior in high school, and he's just was a great example. Matt Cox was over there at the time. He was a great example. So those are just things that I think about were pretty solid. But educationally, man, really, really good. And they had tons of, Bryce did band. Shelby did band for a while. Drum, all that, indoor percussion. You have all these opportunities for extracurricular that they don't always exist everywhere else. And so it's just, there's not an outlet there for, especially a lot of times in the arts, you miss some things, I think, but pretty broad curriculum that you can pick and choose from as well.
I've noticed over time, even at the middle school level, the amount of clubs now that are available and groups, it's crazy. Like we have a fishing team.
Yeah.
We have a bowling team.
Robotics
is huge at our school. We've seen kids that were never athletic, but they live for robotics. And so that's been neat to see.
Yeah, I will say that's one of the things, because I was a public educator for 12 years, 7 years, and then there was some private school in there too. But I will say one of the things that has impressed me most with our particular school district, and I think it is probably in some ways unique to our area, but the way for everybody to find a thing that they're good at, that they can make community connections in, and like that was not always my experience growing up in public school. I had a good experience in public school. I went to Clinton and had great teachers, incredible education through that. But if you weren't good at sports, and you weren't a female and a cheerleader, it's like sometimes there were not things for you to
Spanish
do.
club.
It didn't. It really wasn't. When I was
and I'm glad to see that's kind of been remedied in our place, or where we live, and kind of our experience.
Yeah, I think that's another key point though. That's not pervasive in all public schools either.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Either the quality of education or the number of programs that are available. We're in a fluent area, and that shows.
It makes a difference for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So Steve, you kind of hinted at this a little bit. So from a spiritual formation standpoint, how did your kids attending public school, how did that affect their spiritual formation? Did you see specific things that you were like, okay, that's good, that wasn't so great? Like, I'm curious to know.
Yeah. I think I'll probably have a better answer when I'm done. But one thing I'd say at the outset of even having that conversation about school choice, I think if you're a parent who loves your children and wants what's best for them, you are uniquely qualified to make the best decisions for them. Period. Right?
I agree.
And so I think that's independent of all the other things. But I do think from a spiritual formation perspective, it's a very eclectic crowd, right?
Sure.
Public schools have the challenge to educate everyone. And so from that perspective, you're going to get everything from haves to have-nots. So if you think about socioeconomic, there's a big disparity there. And so I think we think about how we get along with, maybe witness to, or maybe treat people that are different than us. Man, there's no better way to learn that than being around people that are different than you.
Yeah.
Right. That's a predicator, right? If you want to learn how to act around people that are different than you, you better get embedded with some. And so there's a lot more diversity in private schools now than during our time as well. So I'm not suggesting that might not be the case. You see scholarships, and you definitely still see economic diversity and things like that. But I think that was huge. And then they've all of a sudden got to reconcile what I'm hearing at home and in church, these Christian beliefs, and now, what I'm seeing. And I think that's common no matter where you're in school, but they've got to reconcile how to deal with what they feel like is right versus what's happening and what's wrong, and people that just don't believe the same thing.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's I think these days you get that no matter where you go. But I do think it's more of that, man, you're going to start learning how to live in the world pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you've got to deal with real life here every day. And, your mileage may vary.
Anything you want to add to that?
I mean, as a teacher, I wish that I could, and I've actually kind of gotten in trouble a time or two. I wish that I could be vocal about my beliefs. I really do. I would have wished, I do wish that maybe my kids could have had chapel, or they could have,
Sure.
Had, those kind of classes. But at the same time, we do have FCA if they choose to go. And, like he said a little while ago about the Christian teachers, you have plenty of teachers who, I actually had a kid that I had to be very careful what I said to him, but he wanted me to know, this was a few years back, he wanted me to know that he did not believe in God. He wanted me to know that he, no matter what his family thought, he did not believe in God. And so and this has probably been 10 years ago actually, but I probably crossed some lines that, there would be times that I would try to talk to him, not talk to him, but I even typed up something one time and handed it to him. It was literally one of the last days of school. And I was like, I want you to have this, take it home, read it, because he let me know that his parents did not know that he did not believe. So I wasn't crossing any lines there. I felt like his parents were probably in favor of it. And he went on to high school, and he actually, he contacted me, I think through his mom contacted me and said, he's getting baptized and he wants you to be there. And so it was really cool that I had been able to say a few things here and there.
Absolutely.
And that he,
So we skipped church that day. I hope you're okay with that. We went to their church.
I wish that, I wish sometimes I could say more and not, but.
That was a large part of my experience too. I mean, just to be completely frank, there were times where, thankfully, my kids opened the door. Like literature really allowed for that a little bit, maybe more than math. I'm not a shot at math.
You need to pray in math class if you're a student like I was.
So absolutely, but like there were times and stories where big questions would come up, and we got to have really open conversations, but not as open as I would have liked. And there were times where students would come to me privately and ask questions. I had similar experience with a young lady that was in my class that definitely was not a believer. And definitely had different views than I did on myriad of topics. We had such a good relationship that she made me a pillow before she left, and I have it in my office still. And it was one of those things where if I was in a different setting, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to share the love of Christ, to be kind, to learn, to listen, those sorts of things. I think it is a unique place where you got to figure out quickly, how to live and faithfully walk out your faith with people who just are not going to agree with you and are going to think differently than you. It's okay. It's just hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I think the other piece that should be said is that spiritual formation of your children is largely going to rest on your shoulders. Kind of a daunting task to think about. As parents, they're going to see how you live out your faith, watch you every day. They're going to see the best and the worst of you.
Yep.
And they're going to reconcile that with the things that you're teaching them about their faith. And so to a large extent, the school's not going to do that for you. The church is not going to do that for you.
That's right.
And so I think that a lot of it falls back to the reality that they live at home. And what does that look like? And so I think that's a kind of a cautionary tale too for, hey, we need to be taking the steps that we're professing.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. I do think that if as a pastor, I would tell anybody who's listening to this, I think if I could give parents one thing is to be courageous enough to take on that responsibility. I think it's easy for us because we commodify everything. And so it's easy for us to look at the church as the place where they're giving out the commodity of spirituality. So I'm going to drop my kids off there because I want my kids to have spirituality. I want them to care, believe in God, to care about those sort of things. But I don't really know how to do that very well, and I feel like they probably need to know how to do it better. And so I'm going to trust them to do that for me. And sometimes we do the same thing with education, with school. And I would say that it probably is there would be some people that would look at me as a person who was a public educator and also sent my kids to public school and say, well, you kind of did that with your kids' education. You commodified that, and you dropped them off with somebody else to educate them, and they're not totally wrong in that. There were some things I couldn't do for my kids. It's the same thing with Julie, and so I do think that's an interesting part of the conversation overall when it comes to making these choices. Is where are we going to trust others to help us, and how much do we trust them to help us? I will say, when my kids came home, that the schoolwork that happened at home wasn't done by themselves most of the time. Now it is now, because I can't do calculus. I occasionally call Anna up and see if she can help me with calculus. But like for the longest time, we sat down together and did homework. It wasn't my assumption that the teachers handled that and they did all the things. I'm sure y'all had a similar experience with y'all's child.
Anna sat down and helped them do homework. Some of us can do math, some of us can teach math and do math. I can just do math.
Some of us make them cry. Some of us do not.
Hey, easy. They only cried a few times. I feel like suggesting that an example in the book might be a good place to start shouldn't make you cry. I don't know.
But it did.
We've had similar experiences at our house. I won't say who made who cry, but it's, there were some days where it was me and some days where it was Julie. But it's one of those things where, like, I would encourage parents, like, you step into that and you take that responsibility on, and you don't have to be an expert at everything. You don't have to be an expert at spirituality, following Jesus. I mean, you want to strive for that, but like, if you live life with integrity in front of your kids, they're going to see this is something they really believe. And, I know that y'all have had that experience with y'all's as well. And so, so as you think back on your kids' journey through public education, and you have a young family that comes up to you here at church and says, hey, we're thinking about whether we should send our kids to public school, send them to private school, should we homeschool them? What advice would you give them?
Probably ask them what their goals are.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, that's, if they're having that thought, we didn't have those thoughts. And alluded to, early on, we weren't going to be able to pay for 3 kids to go to private school.
Right.
So that's a pretty easy decision. That's not happening. And we were unwilling to take on debt or, just not. And then once you've been here for a while, you realize how good the school district is. There's still a monetary component, because I'm looking and going, I'm already paying taxes to support the public school district. I don't think I want to pay extra for private school. And I didn't have a particular need. My kids weren't missing anything. They were getting educated and all that. And there's all kinds of different reasons why you might decide to make that change, no different than Anna going from private to public. I've seen people go from public to private for a number of very good reasons. But yeah, I really think if I were going to tell a young parent, I would say, think real hard about what your motivation is, and then really think about, is one better than the other for the things that motivate you?
Yeah.
And as you consider that, the other thing I would think about is, are you undergoing some kind of social pressure to do one or the other? Like, I would totally filter that out. And then think about your children. Not every kid is well adapted to sit in a room full of 20 or 30 students, or 15 even. Maybe they do need a really small setting where there's 5 to 10 and they can just be, and that could be for any number of reasons. So I think it goes down to the reasoning, and it comes down to you being really comfortable with why you're doing it. If it's social pressure, or I think fear is a terrible decision maker.
Yep.
So if that's part of it, I wouldn't let fear be part of the decision maker. That'd be kind of my conversations with them. I don't think I've ever parented well enough that I'm in any danger of writing a book and making any real definitive statements about what you should do with your children.
Yeah.
So I just think I'd mainly get them to start thinking in terms of questions. I'd ask them questions about what they want out of it, help them hold up a mirror and ask themselves what are their goals, and why are they thinking about one versus the other? Because admittedly, most of our adult life has been unplanned. We kind of forrest gumped our way through this whole thing. It's worked out okay so far. But realistically, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you we had some master plan for public education and we worked that thing out to perfection. That's just where we went and ended up. I'm sure it was influenced by knowing that we were in a good school district and having gone through a good one in Clinton. didn't have any terrible experiences there that were not just normal school type things,
Yeah. Anything?
Well, I would say just to pray about it and then do what works best for your kids, for your family.
Yeah, I do think that's an important factor is like just think about your kids, figure out what your kids can handle, what will help benefit them the most, and then make decisions. I agree with Steve. Like, do not make your school decision or any really decision when it comes to parenting based on fear.
Yeah.
And that is much easier said than done.
Sure.
Because you know how it is. You want to protect your children. You want to do what you can to support them. And so often we do that out of a place of like, I just don't want my kids to like end up in a bad situation or to fail or to whatever, fill in the blank. And so I parent out of this place of I'm terrified that if I make the wrong decision for them, their life's going to be a disaster.
Sure.
And most of the time, that's very rarely is that actually the case.
Yeah.
You don't have that much influence over the course of their life.
Well, they've got their own agency. If their life turns into a disaster, they probably made the decisions that got them there. And one other thing that I would point out, we talked about not having them. I mean, monetarily, it wasn't a thing. Now, realistically, that could have been a thing. But one of the strongest things you can give your children is a strong marriage. One of the biggest stressful things in marriage is finances. So if you're sitting there feeling a ton of social pressure and like this is going to be a thing where we're eating ramen 5 nights a week so the kid can have X education, whatever that looks like, you might give some serious consideration to, is that really good for the family overall to have that kind of financial stress? Because you do see in our area, you still got a disparity in incomes, even where everyone's pretty affluent. Man, if there's any keeping up with the Joneses going on there, I'd be quick to push that aside and not introduce financial stress if that's part of your motivation. Is like my friend so and so, whatever. All my friend group, they all do that. We can't really afford it, but that's what we want. I'm not saying it's wrong. It would be wrong for us. I would not introduce financial stress into my marriage because that's a big stressor.
Yeah, for sure.
And man, having a good marriage is way more important to your kids than what mascot they pulled for.
Absolutely. Yep. If you look at the statistics, there are 2 real factors on a kid's ability to have success outside of, once they leave home. One is that mom and dad are at home and are involved, and they're doing everything they can to love that child. That is generally the rule. And then 2, did you get a high school diploma? It doesn't say, did you get a high school diploma from a high school, a public high school, a private high school, homeschool? Like, did you get that high school diploma? And those 2 things make it much easier for kids to succeed after they leave home than any other statistical measures. All right. Well, thank y'all so much for your time today.
Appreciate it.
It's been a great conversation.
Absolutely.
I would encourage anybody who's been listening to this to think through some of what Steve and Anna were talking about as far as just kind of the decisions that you have to make, the questions that you might have when it comes to what's important to you and your family when it comes to your kids' education. And I want to encourage you guys, if you have questions and you want to get more information, you can reach out to me here at the church, and I'll get you in touch with others like Steve and Anna and some of the other guests that we've had on so that you can ask maybe more questions about that. Because what we want to do more than anything else is, as we move through these journeys in our life, we want to leave things better than we found them. And so be with us as we think about what better things are ahead.